We are at 9:10, so we will go ahead and introduce our keynote. Ms. Pamela K. Isom serves as FWG's Chief Innovation Officer. She brings over 25 years of professional service in public and private sectors. As a senior executive and team leader, she leads business focused on transformations through the application of responsible innovations. Ms. Isom previously served as executive director at the U.S. DOE, AITO, and in total, she provided 7 years of federal service through guiding agencies through research, intellectual property management, governance, and application integration practices for the betterment of citizens. Her cross-industry experience in manufacturing, e-commerce, financial services, energy, and government have led to numerous recognitions for innovative outcomes, including Fed 100 Award. Ms. Isom holds a master's in information systems management from Walden University. She is the author of a book, has published scientific journals, has been awarded several patents, and is a small business entrepreneur. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to Pamela K. Isom.
All right. So good morning. Thanks for having me. I got to make sure I'm talking into the mic so those on the Zoom can hear me. So thanks for that nice introduction, and thank you for having me here to just talk about the use of AI, climate innovations, and how we're infusing AI and cyber to address the climate crisis. I have lots of opinions here, so I'm just going to start out by saying when I'm talking today, these are my own personal opinions, my own personal perspectives, except for when I specifically single out things that we're doing at FWG. All right. So people are curious. I did leave federal service a few months ago. I joined a small company as the Chief Innovation Officer. My role and responsibility is to lead the transformation of the organization into a small business technology powerhouse. So that's a lot, and that's a big responsibility, but my focus is really on implementing and driving innovations that are technology-based. I am responsible for cyber, so cybersecurity falls under my jurisdiction, and technology. So all things technology is my responsibility. I'm also responsible for business growth and development, and then overall IT management and the associated certifications. So given that, of course, artificial intelligence falls right in there. And so it is a delight to be before you today. Now, on this slide here, I talk briefly to what you can expect. So you can expect me to give a background on the organization, just a little bit more. And then I'm going to go into some climate information, some fundamentals, real quick on that. And then I really want to get into some climate innovations. When I talk about climate innovations, we're going to talk about things that we know of that exist and things where we see opportunities, and we being myself. So things that I see as opportunities. And again, these are my opinions. But and then I'll get into what is FWG doing to support and mitigate risks associated with the climate crisis. And then we'll get into next steps and references. So let's start with the background. FWG is a small business certified 8A professional services and information technology firm. They maintain a top secret facility clearance. We are supporting the IC, so the intelligence community, and the Department of Defense. So that's our primary clients. So that means when I'm talking today, if it sounds like I'm leaving some information out, I am. Okay, so FWG maintains a mature quality management system. So again, as I mentioned, I'm one of the ones that's responsible for some of these certifications and leading us through some of the certifications. So we currently are certified as ISO 2K, the 2018 version, the 27K 2013 version, and then CMMI maturity level 2. We hope to get to level 3 someday. And then I'm currently working on CMMC, so the cybersecurity maturity model certification. This little wheel here just exemplifies some of our capabilities, and I'll get a chance to talk about that a little bit more. But you can see on the outskirts, there's engineering excellence, there's DevSecOps and responsible innovation, improving performance, and data management. So I'll just talk to the outskirts. And then as I get into describing some of the things that we're doing, you'll hear me mention weapon systems, for instance. You'll hear about cybersecurity. You'll hear some of these things. So let's talk about climate information. So on the very first slide, I have this here picture that says, notice the tree. So the tree is partially green and then is partially not so healthy. One side is a little healthy, the other side is dry. That's what we're dealing with today. So we need to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which I know we all know. So when I'm talking, you'll see this start to green up, right? So, because that's where we want to go. This is where we are now. So we need to cut the greenhouse gas emissions to 0. We all know that. We need to absorb the remains from the atmosphere with nature and technology. That's the opportunity for organizations like FWG Solutions and the rest of us. So we've got a situation where 90% of the excess heat in the Earth system is absorbed by the ocean, 90%. So that's contributing to ocean heat content. So one of the things that we want to do, that's contributing to sea level rise. But one of the things that we want to do, which I'll get to, is maybe take some of that ocean heat content and use that for renewable energy. Another one is the Mississippi River. It's running low. Can you imagine? It's running low. And so what the NOAA is pointing out is that it is having an impact on crop transportation and distribution across the land. And then the methane mitigation, which I was just talking about earlier with Priya and Frank. But we know that the methane mitigation, we need to do something about it. If we can do something about it, we can reduce the premature deaths and we can reduce the emergency room visits. In this particular example, it says methane mitigation can deliver nearly 0.3 degrees Celsius of avoided warming. If we can do that, look at the lives we save. So this is why we should care. And I know we heard about this, but I just want to reiterate the point that this is why we should care. And then I'll talk about why and what does AI have to do with this. But first, let's remember some of the COP highlights. So COP 27, maybe I should say COP 27. We'll see. So for the COP 27 highlights, I'm a walker. And so I'm walking through my neighborhood and I'm like enjoying Al Gore and some of the ones that are talking about what's happening and how we need to step up and take action. And it's good. It's good because we know how serious this really is. And so it's nice to hear others talking about it and conveying some of the messaging. But they spoke about adaptation and action. And they said that it's imperative. And we know that that's the case. But look at some of the things that they were saying that we need. We need to be able to predict risks, vulnerabilities. We need solutions. How many times did they say we need solutions? They said we need early warning systems, decision intelligence. I think I heard them say that we need sustainable solutions and climate justice. I don't know if that sounds like AI to you, but it sure sounds like AI to me. It sounds just like a problem that AI can solve or can help solve. So there we say, use AI. I say, use AI for community safety and readiness. Recognize and respond to hazards. Use AI to cope with these unusual conditions and the climate crisis, and use AI to help us respond the right way early during the crisis. You know, like let's say there's an extreme weather event. We can use some of the capabilities of AI to be able to respond early during those events and after. So we're routing people to the right locations with precision. And then cybersecurity. So after all of that, after everything that we're doing with AI, the information can get distorted. We could route people to the wrong locations unintentionally because we weren't being diligent when it comes to cybersecurity. So we cannot leave out the cybersecurity realm of this. So apply zero trust, advanced threat protections every step of the way. And when we're thinking about solutions for the climate crisis, when we're thinking about data science, when we're thinking about AI, we have got to think about cybersecurity. They go hand in hand. So no misinformation, we can prevent service disruptions, minimize impact, and save some lives if we put them together. So on this chart, so what I want to do here is I started to think through what are some examples. And I really appreciate the folks that write articles, publish journal entries, and bring their ideas and proof of concepts out in the literature. And I personally like to talk about what they're doing so that people know, those researchers, those scientists, that they know that they've been heard. They've been heard. People are reading what they're saying, and we're actually looking to do something with it. So here's an example of an acoustics-based leak detection system. And it's about water resource management. And so what the authors talk about is that in Thailand, there's a utility provider that has a team of folks have come up with a solution that will help to identify leaks in the water distribution system. And there's an issue because this is typically non-revenue water. So it's water that's leaked and it's water that is, it's not generating revenue. In fact, it's contributing to loss, 9 billion in annual loss. So they published this paper on what they're doing. And what they talked about is that it's an AI-based solution. The data sets are acoustics, right? It's sound. The solution, they went through several options when coming up with a solution. Using convolutional neural networking, using deep neural networks, and then there's a third one. What they point out is that they ended up choosing the deep neural network pattern after testing the results and trying the results in various data scenarios. What they do is they replace the typical approach of listening to the sound in the ear device, putting something to the ear and listening to the sound and walking around trying to figure out based on the sound, is there a leak? And they replaced that with artificial intelligence and a mobile device that directs them to where the leaks are. So from listening to something, putting something in your ear and sticking something in the ground and listening to it that way, to actually having the use of machine learning and deep neural networks direct you to where the leaks are in the pipes, on top of the surface, but directing you, is a big step forward. And that's what they did. And this is in Thailand. And I put a link to the paper because we can use that throughout this climate crisis. There's going to be leaks all over the place that we're not going to see. We're not going to know. And if we don't see them yet, they're coming, right? So this is where climate innovations, the use of AI, and of course, cybersecurity is built into this. They're navigating with the cloud. That information has to be accurate. That information has to be reliable. So it's built into this. And what they pointed out is the opportunities, advanced predictions and forecasting of leaks, and then more distribution efficiencies. I love this story, so I couldn't help but share it. So now I want to talk about something that's even closer to my heart, and that's protecting our utility and our energy assets. So I really need to move around, so I'm going to have to grab this mic, but I'll come back and adjust my slides. I'll come back. So, because this will take a minute. So, okay. So this one. Okay, so I'm gonna go over here. So at the top here is the energy assets. So you got solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, ocean, right? So the ocean is not up there, but ocean heat can be used for renewable energy. And then on the very right, there's gas and coal. And so what I'm pointing out here is to protect our energy assets, we need cybersecurity, of course, which is at the bottom. But we need AI to help us understand where that energy is coming from, what are the sources of energy, when is that energy being utilized, how is that energy generated, and we're not able to process all that information alone as humans. So we need technologies like what we're talking about here to do so. We need to be able to aggregate that information. And if you think about where we're headed, these are little mini grids, right? Microgrids. Microgrids are going to be talking to each other, whether it's electric vehicles, whether it's the ocean heat situation. All this needs to be talking, and they're distributed energy resources that we need. That's where we need to be sure that if there's an issue with solar in one area and we're leaning on solar and there's an issue, do we know that there's an issue? And is there a way to get to energy if that situation is not functioning for the moment? And how can we quickly get it back to function, back to functionality? So this is where interconnectivity, distributed energy resources, working with vast amounts of renewable energy sources, which is where we are. And we're going to go further in this capacity. We have got to be able to protect these sources. We have to think about the providers of this energy, as well as the sustainability of these energy sources. And so this is what I'm pointing to here. On the very right, I point out that abandonment, AI can be used for looking at, for conducting audits, for inspections, because gas and coal, it isn't gone yet, but we want it to go away, right? So to help with this crisis. So those facilities, that infrastructure, when we abandon those areas, is it safe? If we stop using some areas, is it safe? That's where computer visioning comes in. So we can use computer vision to inspect locations, to make sure that areas are safe, that there's no harm, that there's no leakage. You can not just computer visioning, but AI, period. And the satellite views and the processing of information that comes from satellite and all these different sources are ripe for advanced capabilities like AI. On the left-hand side, I mentioned en route capabilities, but if the nuclear functionality is not performing like we want, how do we know? And then once we discover that that's the case, what are the alternate sources? What are the mitigations? That's where things like AI can work. And then the reroute efficiencies is, what do we do instead? Are my plans sufficient enough to protect my energy assets? Cities need to be looking at this, governments, just people as a whole, looking at things from a holistic perspective. And then I talk about AI and AI cyber. So you don't protect the assets without paying attention to the cybersecurity realm. So AI and AI for cyber needs AI. Cybersecurity needs AI. And that's because of the fast processing of information, the conversion of data to knowledge and knowledge graphs and things that we can look at and follow and process. So that's why we need to start to infuse, and we are, AI into cyber. And then we're thinking about readiness and defensive. So they talked about readiness, they talked about defensiveness, they talked about early warning systems. Right here, you need, we need from a cyber perspective to ensure that we are aware of issues early rather than later. Early, before we can even fathom it. And that's where tools like this come into play. So when I look at some of the trends on the left, the trends are unsupervised, reinforcement, and behavioral. Those are the trends. And I already mentioned the deep learning. It's not that supervised is not okay. It's just that these are what I see as trends. And then there's a focus on adaptability, which was good because they even mentioned that, not knowing that's a form of AI, adaptable AI, explainability and observability. And then natural language processing and semantics, that's not going away. That's starting to exacerbate in a good way. So when you think about cyber, think about some of the themes that we're hearing: data management, risk management, asset management, threat intelligence, incident response. And all of these sound almost exactly like the things we want to be watching out for when it comes to mitigating and managing the climate crisis and some of these risks. So data management, operational management, we're dealing with the energy and protecting our energy assets. More of a focus on operational technology than information technologies, but there are both. We need to protect both. And these protections protect our energy assets. So from a cyber perspective, last thing I want to point out is there is a focus on the zero trust. It's a requirement. That is microsegmentation. That's advanced identity management. Don't forget the legacy systems. And then the supply chain risk management, SBOM, don't forget the software bill of materials. And of course, the asset management and some of the details. The last thing I want to point out is team sport. It has to be a team sport. I think we heard that before. So you can clearly see that the focus on community, fraud, waste, abuse, and I added, and justice. And then communications and distributed decision intelligence. All of this is elements of cyber. This is how our cybersecurity is going to protect our energy assets, and that's how cybersecurity is utilized. We have to protect our energy assets, not just through cyber, but in the mechanisms that I pointed out earlier. So let's go back to some more climate innovations. So I wanted to get past the fundamentals. And now back to the climate innovation. So here's another example of some that are out there. We're monitoring greenhouse gas emissions using satellites. So they mentioned the climate trace as an example. Generate renewable energy from ocean heat using AI. That's to simulate and to run hypotheses and to model the outcomes. And then digitally traverse literature. So we're using AI to digitally traverse literature because we can't process it ourselves and make sense of it. We need some help. So we're doing that, and that makes a whole lot of sense because there's so much literature out there around materials discovery. Ultimately, we want to cultivate the climate intelligence. So where are the opportunities? Clean defense systems. I see that as a really good opportunity. Clean defense systems. In the area of predictions, water rise, auto distribution to drought areas. So we're suffering from rising sea levels in one area, droughts in another. We have an opportunity to do something about that. Route the distribution of the water to the drought areas or the needed areas. And then intelligence. So there's a lot going on with assessments. We need more city level emission insights. And how do we preserve marine life? What are the impacts of what we're doing on marine life? I know there's some information out there, but I think there's more that we can do to bring awareness so that when we take action, we're taking the right actions. And then the other areas around decisions, affordable carbon capture in every household. Affordable. I ought to be able to take the greenhouse gas emissions that may be occurring in my house and have some type of appliance that pushes that out of the atmosphere into the proper storage underground. I should be able to do that as a responsible citizen. I'm not sure I can do that today. And if I can, we need more awareness of this type of capability. Because I'm a responsible citizen and I want to help contribute to mitigating the risk of the climate crisis. So another example is biotech. So the opportunities. AI can detect unknown variables that could help save lives. So this is personal because I lost my brother to leukemia. And I lost him to leukemia. We didn't find out that this was his situation until 20 years into the process. He was an adult and leukemia was discovered. And you know what it was from? Stuff in the air. Stuff in the water. So this one's personal. We have to do something. And we have an opportunity to do so. Now there's work going on. So this is why I put it under biotechnology. There's work going on. But if it hit my home, it hit your home. AI models are explainable with justification. So we know that that's happening today. I just wanted to point that out. So today, robotics is applied. Robotics is applied in agriculture to speed up harvesting, for better packaging. It's utilized for weather and genome analysis. And so I thought that one was pretty good. So this is another one where the authors did a really good job of explaining the genome analysis and how they are able to determine how crops or plants will perform in certain conditions, extreme conditions, based on scenarios. So they were able to then contribute to orchestrating yields. So what is FWG doing? So we are responsible for unmanned aerial systems, drones for defense and intelligence. We have some of that responsibility. So the reason why I point that out is in doing so, we are not using gas vehicles, right? So we're moving away from that and into unmanned aerial systems. I will say that there's opportunities to do more to make the weapon systems greener, but we are contributing to mitigating the risk of the climate crisis. And then the global digital transformation, we have some things going on at a global scale. Cybersecurity excellence, the team really focuses on not just cybersecurity, but cybersecurity excellence, responsible innovation. So we are making sure, as you can hear me talk today, that when we are innovating, that there's responsibility infused into there. Climate stewardship, that's why I'm honored to be here to talk to you today, and the partnerships. And we are a team of experienced implementers. So in the center of the circle, there's the AI, there's the program management, some of those other fundamentals like AI, cybersecurity, information technology, weapon systems. I mentioned that we have work going on with the DoD and Intel. So what are the next steps? So for us, for you, for me, for all of us, there's an opportunity to increase collaborations. There's more opportunity to use AI for clean manufacturing. So again, going back, looking at that supply chain, trying to understand what the supply chain looks like, mitigating risk in that supply chain. What about clean compute, clean infrastructure? So we don't want the compute to be, compute capacity is the source for AI performing like it is. We don't want our compute capacity to be contributing to climate issues. So there's opportunity. And I know we've heard about this, so I don't want to elaborate, but it's still something that we don't want to overlook. We want faster quality research to implementation. We need to get to implementation faster. There's a lot of work on the research space. And how do we address that bridge from research to implementation? Of course, AI can help us with that, but we just need to be mindful and do things to get there faster. So early warning systems won't do us a bit of good if we spend all our time in research. Early warning systems, get them out the door and available to all communities. And let's prioritize the at-risk and vulnerable community actions. So while we're doing all this, let's not forget the least of these. And then test and evaluation of technologies for CO2 emissions. So as we're coming up with these new and emerging and exciting technologies, let's be sure that we're not introducing and contributing to the crisis. And that is my talk. At the back here are a set of references. I tell you, when I was on my way in this morning, my husband and I were talking last night, and I was concerned because we want to put solar panels on our rooftop. And we've been working on this since I think March of this year, and it's November. And so I was saying, you know what? Something's got to be done to make this process faster and more efficient. You know what I said? AI. It's AI, it's about the climate crisis, it's about doing things and us doing our part. And I wanted to be sure that I told you about that today. So I have a real issue with that. I think that our permitting systems and this whole process of getting these tools in our hands, it needs to be automated, accelerated with efficiency. So there's another use case, another personal use case for me, and my husband's very calm. He's very calm. I'm the one in the family that's the excited one. So I'm like, okay, I'm kind of getting tired of waiting. And my husband's like, no, they're figuring it out. I'm like, well, why is it, it should be done by now. And he's like, yeah, but they'll figure it out. And so when he gets that way, of course, they're going to figure it out because he's going to give them one of those calm calls. But I'm just like, I'm thinking if it's happening to me, it's probably happening to other people. There's another opportunity for innovation, responsible innovation that really matters. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. I have the references here. My daughter told me that I did not have to list these references because I had listed them throughout my session, but that's what I do because I wanted you to have it in case you wanted to quickly get to things. And those are my notes. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. I really like your idea about the carbon capture and sequestration within your own household. I mean, it's pretty cool. Let's look into that. But okay, so let's open it up to Q&A. Any questions? Okay. Hey, Pam, thanks for your talk. I guess I'm curious in the kind of, large space of potential areas for AI that you talked about. Which of these do you think is better suited for, let's say, like public sector implementation versus private sector implementation, small versus large business? Could you sort of maybe give some perspective on, I guess, like which kinds of entities and sectors maybe you feel like are positioned for different kinds of innovations here?
Well, I mean, I think we all are responsible, but maybe from a manufacturing perspective, I know that the administration just came out with, I think on this slide, I put under climate stewardship, and there's a link to it, but they just came out with rules, or they're coming out with rules that are requiring citizens to, especially suppliers to the federal government, to relay their emission levels, so their GHG. And so that is a government thing, because that's rulemaking. So I would think rulemaking, things like that, probably ripe for government. But I think suppliers of parts and some of these tools and the opportunities for some of the tools, because throughout I mentioned opportunities. Suppliers for these type of tools, I think, is private sector. I think the private sector should do it, but we should include federal and other organizations. But I think private sector and of course academia, because that's where, I mean, we should pay more attention to what academia is saying, what they're saying, and then help them quickly get this to solutions implemented by the private sector, made available in partnership with the government and all the other stakeholders. Did that answer your question?
Thank you so much for your talk this morning. On that note, I just wanted to add The Hill. The magazine The Hill had a great article on defense contractors responding to that rule, what they think of that rule. So if anybody's interested in that, I'm ready, right, for especially in the defense sector, for there to be some reporting on that. So that'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I particularly enjoyed your focus on energy. Thank you for that. And I wanted to ask a little bit more about the utilizing ocean heat as a renewable energy source. I did grab the reference there at the end, but I just wondered are we currently using AI for that, or is that in development? Could you just expand on that a little bit?
I know of at least one agency, as I was doing my research. So I wanted to come before you with facts. And so I did research. And there's at least one agency that has done some work in this space. And there is, if you Google it, you'll see that there are other activities that are underway, but there is at least one or two that are using AI to look at the models, create the models, look at how the models are performing, look at the distribution of the ocean heat and the implications that will have, and also the sustainability of the ocean heat once it becomes renewable energy. But if you look at that horizontal bar of energy sources, ocean heat is going to go up there.
Any other questions from the audience here before I check the chat? Okay, we do have one. Okay. On your slide with the coal on the right and the solar on the left, is there a reason you had them in that particular order? Wondering if you see adequate investment in them all, or can investments be better aligned for positive change?
So they're talking about the slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So there is adequate, I mean, the point is that, okay, it's not working now. The point is that, the point being that the coal and the gas, we want to stop using that coal and gas. We want to move away from right there. So we want to move away from coal and gas. So that's the significance. And so I'm trying to point out that I'm mindful of the fact that we want to mitigate the use of and reduce the use of coal and gas. And so that's why the arrow doesn't extend all the way over. Do I see that the investments in these are going to continue probably for a little while? But we do need to pay attention to what's happening and focus on these renewable energies. So the only reason why those two are not emphasized is because I really want to emphasize, pay attention to what are we gonna do after we stop using this type of fuel.
Okay, I think that was our last online question, but I have one as well. So what is like the role of government and policy and kind of helping to move some of this stuff forward?
I'm not in the federal government anymore, so I can't speak for the government. I'll get in trouble. So what I can say is the policy that I know of that was published, the rulemaking that I know is underway. I know that that's underway. I know that that's been published, and I know that the Biden administration is doing things along those lines to augment the one rule that we know just came out. Anything else, I don't really know. And if I do, I'm not the spokesperson for it.
Thank you very much.
We have time for one more question.
Sure.
So, I mean, this is a very big picture question, so, but you're the highest level government person, that we have here. It seems to me that climate change, and I think you probably agree, is an existential crisis that our children are going to deal with.
Yeah.
But it seems like the government is very diffuse in its response to it. Is there any, I mean, I would think that it would be like, you know, the war on cancer or the Apollo, mission, that there would be like all hands on deck, some agency that sort of owns the problem and owns the response. Do you see the government moving to a direction where they're really going to devote enough energy and enthusiasm and money to solving this in the next 8 years?
I know of the goals that have been set by the administration. So there's some accelerated goals to some things we need to get to by 2030. So I think that's an example. I think that some of the government officials did speak at COP27, and I know a lot of people say talk, but where's the action? But I do think that, you know, my own personal opinions, because again, I cannot speak for the government. I can tell you my own opinions, and I can tell you what my experiences when I was in the government. My experiences when I was in the government is that there is concern, and the government wants to do something about it. And I believe that the participation in the rulemaking and things like that are examples. As far as agencies, I mean, I think that they all are interested in trying to do something to help here. I believe you can just go to the whitehouse.gov and see. I don't think you can miss it. Go to energy.gov. I just can't speak for energy anymore, but go there. You'll see. Yeah. I hope that answered your question. Now, me personally and the private sector, now where I'm at, we're into it. We're trying to figure out what to do and how to do it. And that's why I'm here today. I take it very seriously, and the organization takes it very seriously, or they wouldn't have allowed me to go ahead and come and do this talk, or they would have pushed back, you know, but they didn't do that at all. So and also we support a lot of the private sector. Keep in mind, a lot of the private sector supports the government, like us. We support defense and intel. So we're going to be doing our part.
I think that's all the questions. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.